Hello and welcome to our London History Podcast, where we share our love of London, its people, places and history. It's designed for you to learn things about London that most Londoners don't even know. I am your host, Hazel Baker, qualified London tour guide and CEO and founder of londonguidedwalks.co.uk. Each episode is supported by show notes, transcripts, photos and further reading, sometimes even videos, all to be found on our website londonguidedwalks.co.uk/podcast and then select the episode that you fancy. If you enjoy what we do, then you will love our guided walks and private tours that we offer throughout the year. Joining me in the studio today is Paul Couchman, the Regency Cook. Hello, Paul. Lovely to have you back.
Well, hello. It's nice to be back again. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has, but of course, food is always going to be coming back onto this show. I mean, it's fascinating how things have progressed over the 2 years that we have now been little buddies. And of course, with Christmas coming up, what better thing to talk about than Christmas puddings?
Absolutely. One of my favourite things to eat as well. I don't know, do you love a Christmas pudding?
I love a Christmas pudding. You know, my birthday is on Christmas Day.
Oh.
Now, that can be problematic. You know, people forget it, you know, presents and all the rest of it. But I am guaranteed to have two of my favourite things to eat. That is Brussels sprouts and Christmas pudding. So, you know, it's a winning day for me.
I had my first sprouts yesterday because I always wait because I love them so much. So I'll be eating almost every day, I think, from now on. Sprouts up until about January. I love them. I adore them.
Yeah, exactly. I don't get what people are going on about. Yeah, absolutely adore them, and especially when they're in season. They're so tasty.
Yeah.
All righty. So in terms of Christmas pudding, for those that may be not familiar with a Christmas pudding, what is it?
Okay, so the usual ingredients in a Christmas pudding are suet, brown sugar, always but not always, but raisins, sultanas, currants, candy peel, breadcrumbs, egg spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and lots of alcohol. The thing about a Christmas pudding which makes it different, because if I read this list out to you, you think, oh, it's a Christmas cake. But the thing that makes the Christmas pudding different is it's got suet in it. And the wonderful thing about suet is that it melts. So when it's warm, it melts in your mouth and it carries the flavours of all those lovely ingredients, including the alcohol, right into your bloodstream or into your taste buds. And that's what's so delicious about it. And the suet as well is the other thing. It makes the texture different. So, you know, Christmas cake can be a bit stodgy, but Christmas pudding isn't because it's meltingly soft. And when you put it in your mouth, like I said, it will melt in your mouth and all those flavours will get in. And the other thing is lovely, of course, it's warm, and then you can put other things on it. And what you do, usually traditionally, I don't know if you do this, but it's nice to serve with brandy butter. Even nicer, actually, is rum butter. And they used to call this a hard sauce because basically it starts off hard when it's cold. And then when you put it onto this lovely, you know, warm pudding, it will melt down and start forming a sort of like a lovely lot of gooey sauce. You know, you get this, then you get all this texture difference as well going on as well. Because what you traditionally do, as you know, you set it alight. You put some holly on it and then you pour some brandy over it and you set it alight. And the great thing about setting it alight, there's two things actually. One of it is there's symbolism to it. You know, it's this whole thing about light coming back. You know, because it's the darkest period of the year, and the light is like they used to light candles, but you can also just light your Christmas pudding. It's like faith in the eventual return of the sun. You know, so it's symbolic, isn't it? Yeah.
Is there a tip that you can give us on? I mean, for childhood memories, my mum would get us to turn off the lights. She'd light the Christmas pudding with Dad, and it'd be just a little blur. That was it. It's this little blue flame, millisecond, and it's gone. So other than copious amounts of alcohol, is there anything else that one can do to get a good flame?
No, it really is copious amounts of alcohol. The problem is if you see a lot of the ones on TV and stuff in adverts and stuff, I mean, they will just use other spirits to do it, you know, 'cause it's the quantity of alcohol in the spirit. So if you really want to really go for it, then you have to use more of it. But the thing is about the spirit, another thing it does, it sort of caramelizes, well, you probably know this, it sort of caramelizes the top. So again, it's adding another flavor note. You're getting a slightly sour flavor, which then contrasts with the sweetness. So you got another flavour going on as well.
Yeah.
So I love the way that all these different things that you do with puddings starts
the texture as well, isn't it?
Texture, absolutely. You get the crispy soft going on. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And you get those little pools of brandy butter.
Yes.
And then I don't know about you, but I do have brandy butter and custard. Is that naughty?
Oh, I was just saying, I think because I talk a lot on Twitter about these things, so I will put up a tweet about, what do you serve your Christmas pudding with? And I am not somebody who says you can't have this, you can't have that, because I love everything. I love custard. I love cream. I love thin cream. I like thick cream. And all these other sauces I'll come on later as well. I mean, just try it out. I mean, whatever floats your boat. It's fine for me. I'm not a traditionalist, but I would say to people, if you haven't tried the traditional sauces, do give them a go and see if you like them. Because there are some lovely old recipes out there.
Yeah, I make my own brandy butter, which you get that nice texture, don't you, with the grains. Now you said something just now about rum butter.
Yes.
With what, rum and brandy?
No, I leave the brandy out. Just choose the rum. It's slightly nicer than the brandy, I think. But
so what's going on the Christmas pudding? You putting rum on the Christmas pudding then?
Yeah, why not?
Oh.
Well, give it a go. Give it a go, I say. There's nothing. Why not? Why not? It's a change.
Yes,
I do like it. I think it's so rather lovely.
And I assume you are a boil it for an hour kind of guy?
Absolutely. Though I must say, microbes are brilliant. I shouldn't say this because it goes against my sort of brand as a Regency Cook. But yeah, one of the best ways of heating a Christmas pudding, especially energy saving, is a microwave. But I should really say that, should I? But it is good because obviously the heat from within, so it's a very quick way of doing it.
That's right. A nice steam. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, agree. Hopefully, if anybody hasn't tried a Christmas pudding, you might think now that put all of those wonderful ingredients together, either steam it or boil it, and then set it alight and wow your friends and family with this wonderful dessert, which actually should be more than on Christmas Day. But of course, it's so rich. It's extra special. But it's not, Paul, this is not a Christmas pudding that we've had through the centuries, is it?
Well, we've had it through the centuries, but we haven't eaten it like we do now, as a sort of pudding at the end of a heavy pudding, at the end of a heavy dinner, which kind of makes no sense at all. Because if you think, and we go back through history now, puddings from the 16th century onwards, they used to be eaten alongside other foods. So either you were rich and you had it as one of the meals on a table. So, imagine a table like you would, I don't know, have for Thanksgiving or something like that, a table full of food. And it would have been one of the things on the table for rich people. But if you were poor, you might actually have your pudding before the main meal, before the beef, for example, if you're eating meat, just to fill you up, because it's a great way of filling you up. So it's almost comical. We do it the other way around now. We have this massive meal and then we have a massive pudding. But they would have done completely the opposite. Fill your stomach up first if you're poor, and get other, and then you'd have, you wouldn't feel so terrible about having a tiny bit of meat. And if you were rich, you'd pick and choose what you would eat. So you'd have a tiny bit of Christmas pudding, which I think is a nice idea as well, just a little bit of pudding with something else. There's this idea, don't you? I know my gran used to do it. You get this great big bowl of it and you feel obliged to eat it and then you feel terrible afterwards. But yeah, if you look at history, that's probably not what you should be doing. You should probably be eating it after a little meal, maybe just a little snack, and then have your pudding afterwards. Maybe on Boxing Day rather than on Christmas Day.
I like that idea. Just spread the Christmas yumminess along, really.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got another thing to say about puddings. Just generally, I mean, they weren't always associated with Christmas. They were associated with special occasions. So it was special occasion food. Harvest or maybe a coronation, something like that. But then you suddenly get this connection with foods that are, feast foods become then connected with Christmas. And there's, lots of examples of that, but pudding is one of them. And then just to finish the Victorian story as well, just quickly, I mean, Queen Victoria would have eaten her pudding as part of the second course alongside other foods, even when it started to become fashionable not to eat it like that. So very gradually, pudding does slide to the dessert side of things. But Queen Victoria, very doggedly, and a lot of older people as well at that period, you have this transition between something called service à la française and service à la russe. So service à la française is everything on the table at the same time.
Yeah.
And service à la russe is more that, the way we eat in posh restaurants with course after course, delicate course after delicate course. And people hung on to that old way of eating, and people like Queen Victoria did as well. So, that's where the pudding was at that point. Then towards the Edwardian period, it starts to slide right to the end of the desserts.
So what is Fermenty then? Because I was reading some old Victorian newspapers, and obviously Fermenty I kind of associate with Christmas more than anything else. But then I was reading that it was still in 1887 served at country wakes, which I suppose are an important occasion.
Yeah, so Fermenty is fascinating because Fermenty starts off in the medieval period as something that a king might eat. And if you were a king, you wouldn't just eat it by itself, you'd eat it with venison, or maybe even porpoise. Porpoise, yes, they used to eat porpoise. Yes, sorry, have I shocked you?
Yes, I'm glad I'm sitting down.
I'm very glad we don't do that anymore. But they used to eat all sorts of things that we wouldn't eat anymore, things like cranes and some of the seabirds, which are actually very disgusting, but are big and look great on tables. But Fermenty used to be served if you were... If you had the money, you would serve it with saffron.
And what is it exactly?
It's a wheat-based porridge, basically. So if you want to make it at home, the way I do it is with bulgur wheat.
Okay.
And you cook down bulgur wheat until it's absolutely soft, and then you cook it again in milk with lots of spices. And I put saffron in mine as well, and then some dried fruits as well. If you think back to the medieval period, these things were terribly expensive.
Yes.
So putting all those things together now, now if you look at it, it's like, nice for breakfast. But back then it would have been the most exotic things, spices from very far away, which have been almost their weight in gold. And you've got all these other Mediterranean dried fruits that come in as well, and some alcohol. But it starts off, like I said, in the medieval period, but slides its way down in the 19th century to something you get served at country fairs. And if you know your Thomas Hardy, it's rather lovely. If you don't know Thomas Hardy, Mayor Casterbridge is a perfect example. He basically buys Fermenty at the beginning of the novel. He buys Fermenty, which has been laced with rum, and then something goes wrong. So I'm not quite sure what goes wrong. At the end of the novel, the same woman that has sold him the Fermenty is now destitute because nobody wants Fermenty anymore. So it's sold in the beginning of the 19th century as something you pay money for at fairs, and then end of the 19th century, nobody wants it anymore. So if I go back to the medieval period, you've slid right down from something Richard II would have eaten in the court to something a woman in the 19th century can't sell anymore to fair. So it's gone all the way down, and now it's sort of disappeared. So we don't eat it anymore at Christmas, but they would have eaten often Christmas mornings. They would have eaten this in the 19th century, and like you said, sometimes it wakes as well. So it's very much a food at that point for the poor. But it's lovely, isn't it? But it's a forgotten Christmas food. It's a food that used to be eaten at Christmas and is no longer eaten at Christmas.
Do you eat it warm or cold?
You eat it warm. I would.
Yeah.
It's much nicer warm, yeah.
So we got Fermenty. What about plum pottage then? Is that like the next... how it progresses, because that's much richer, isn't it? Yeah,
you see, that would be lovely, wouldn't it, if we went from Fermenty to plum porridge, then to plum pudding. But we don't really, because they're all ancestors of each other. So Annie Gray, food historian, she talks to them as cousins, which I think is quite nice. But they're basically things that they're all eaten roughly at the same time by different people, right through the country. At different points, people would have different times and at different locations in Britain, you would eat these things for Christmas. And one by one, they die out. And I did a talk last year, and I did a sort of pudding fight, which I thought was quite nice. So these four things, I've got we've got hacking pudding as well, I just throw in there as well.
Yes.
We've got Fermenty on one side, we've got plum pudding on the other side, we've got hacking pudding on one side, and we've got plum pudding, and they all fight their way to the death, and then basically they all die except for plum pudding. They're similar, that's the thing. So if you look at Fermenty, wheat-based, with lots of, things, alcohol, it's got raisins and things in it as well. Lots of the Christmassy things, spices as well. We've got plum pottage, which is instead of being enriched or thickened with wheat, it's thickened with breadcrumbs.
And is that what peas pottage is?
Peas pottage is thickened with peas, surprisingly. But yeah, it's a stew. It's the same sort of texture.
So do you think people just got fed up of eating the same texture?
It's a good point. You mean with the pudding? Because eventually you start putting it in puddings. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons. The other thing you can do, it's also, if you think about it, and through the history as well, the idea about puddings is they come from sausages, really. It's this idea of putting something in an intestine or skins or porches, boiling them, and then you've got something that you can keep, which is quite handy if you think about it. Yeah. And so the idea of using a pudding cloth to do that means that you can actually start doing sweet things instead. You're not so reliant on bits of animals to do it. And the suet, if you think about it, is the only thing left over from the animal that's still in there. But yeah, those 4 things, Fermenty, plum pottage, hacking pudding, and hacking pudding has got meat in it. It's another sort, it's more like a bit of a sausage, really. So it's got a bit of
so
meat
what would that look like if you were going to be serving hacking pudding? What would that look like on a plate or bowl?
Yeah, so what you do, when you make it like a big sausage. Imagine like a big salami or something like that. Yeah. So you cook it in the pudding cloth. And I've got one in the fridge downstairs. So I've got all 4 of those in the fridge downstairs. It's Christmas. And what you do is you cook it in the normal way, steam it and everything. But then what you do is actually cut slices of it and you bake it or fry it, in butter or which fat you like. Lard is nice too. And you can serve it then as a piece. It's a bit like you serve a blood pudding or something like that. Yeah. And it's all fruity. Again, it's got some of the similar, sugars and spices in it and some of the same ingredients as plum pudding.
And would you have that with a sauce?
I like it with an egg and some, with some cabbage, fried cabbage or something for breakfast. Because it's really quite different. Yeah. How would that? Yeah, do you fancy the sound of that?
I am fancying some of that. So it's a bit more like I suppose like a haggis. How you use
exactly.
Yeah,
but more fruity. It's got more fruit in it, and a bit of sugar as well. So and also it's slightly more spicy as well. So yeah, it's actually quite nice. The one I wouldn't advise is plum pottage because basically you do make it with a beef stock, and then you start adding things like breadcrumbs and dried fruits, figs. And wine. So it does become a bit odd. It's a bit odd. And also the texture is quite, gloopy because of the breadcrumbs. So I think it's a bit of an odd one. So I might leave, if I was going to tell you to eat any of those or try any of those, I'll probably go over the Fermenty, which is rather lovely actually with saffron. And I'll go for the hacking pudding and, of course, the plum pudding. I'll probably leave the plum pottage, but do give it a go just to say you've made it once. Because it's rather fun to make it, but yeah.
And where's the best place to get a good recipe for these, then, Paul?
Well, yeah, on my course, of course. But the other place, and I'm going to plug it because it is a lovely book. There's a really lovely book called At Christmas We Feast by Annie Gray, and she has all the recipes in there as well. It was published last year. It's now out in paperback, and I get no commission on this, but it is a really good read. It's really good fun. She's a very engaging writer. It's a rollick through Christmas history. It's very, very fun.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'll add that in as thank you.
Yeah,
so you mentioned about this this pudding cloth to replace intestines, with like our black puddings, etc. So what is it exactly for people to get a better idea?
So pudding cloth usually is butter muslin or something like that. But in the day, they would have used any bits of cloth they could get their hands on, if you think about it. So it could have been linen, it could have been cotton. It could have been the sleeve off your old shirt, because they often reuse things as well. Mm-hmm. So whenever I do the course, I tell people don't worry too much about which cloth you use because they wouldn't have worried. The important thing, though, is with the pudding cloth is what I do is put it into boiling water. Mm-hmm. While it's still hot, you take it out and you cover it in flour. So you want a nice crust on it, basically. So you want a nice coating of flour, which will become a crust as you put the pudding inside it, tie it up and boil it.
Oh, that's clever.
And I showed it because I did a course yesterday, and it's lovely to show people that because when you very carefully pull off the cloth, and it's a bit like pulling off a bandage on your skin because it takes ages, but you get this lovely sort of crust on the outside of your pudding then. And as you cut through, of course, the colour then changes. So you've got a lighter colour, and it reveals itself in all its glory when you cut through the middle of it, and it gets all black again. Yeah.
And that's an important part of or when we talk about, feasting food, isn't it? It's the theatre of it.
Absolutely. Don't you think? I mean, we talked about setting it alight, but there's also this thing about bringing it in a cloth and then peeling a cloth off. I love it. I love the drama in food. I think there's not enough drama in food.
No, I totally agree on that. Right. So, adding more drama and stirring things up a bit, we have just had Stir Up Sunday.
Yes.
For those who don't know, please explain.
So it's the Sunday before Advent, and the official prayer on that day starts with "Stir up, I beseech thee," and that's why it's called Stir Up Sunday. And there's lots of myths about it, because the thing is, it probably wasn't something they actually did in the Victorian period. Because if you think of it, you've got all these poor families, probably not displaced and probably not with each other at Christmas, and definitely not having time to make a pudding together. They would probably be making puddings for other people. And then if you think about the rich people, they probably wouldn't be down in the kitchen, stirring the pudding up. So it's something that happens later. But as well, actually, no, because you did give tours. These lovely myths are great stories, and so these stories get retold. And so in the Edwardian period, and then later, people are starting to look back to the Victorian period of where they used to all get round and stir up the puddings, but they probably didn't. and the other lovely thing, of course, is we put tokens in the puddings, and this is also something that's transposed actually from the 12th night cake.
Okay.
And what they used to do was put in things, and whatever you picked out would influence your future destiny. And I've got 4 things here for you. You probably know these. What would a thimble? What do you think would happen if you got a thimble?
Well, you're either going to have a very small drink, or you're going to be working for the rest of your life.
Spinster.
There you go.
There we go. A button.
Button.
They're hard to guess these. Sorry, I make it really hard for you.
The pressure is on now. So if I got a button, well, I don't know. That's something small, isn't it? Go on, tell me.
Well, yeah, they had something called a bachelor's button, and so it would be just a quick one, because someone actually told me what a bachelor's button is. It's a button that you fixed on without sewing. Having to sew it on.
I was going to say,
just quite handy.
You have to sew it on for the rest of your life yourself. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Right.
So if you got the button, you would then be a bachelor. And the other two are a bit easier. You get a ring. That's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Marriage.
Yeah.
And there was money for riches as well. So the coin would indicate that you were going to be rich.
You see, now the coin
stays, yeah.
Yes, the coin totally stays. So growing up, we had little silver things that Mum, washed and then put them in Stir Up Sunday each year.
Yeah.
And I can never remember any of them apart from the horseshoe.
Oh, right. A horseshoe. I love that.
But eventually that got a bit mangled after my sister accidentally chewed it. And so then the brand new 5 pences came out, the tiny ones we've got now. And so she started putting those in the Christmas pud instead. And I remember the first year I got 2. So that was a really good Christmas.
And did it work? Did you have a lucky year the next year?
Well, I think it's all a mindset, isn't it?
Maybe. But that's awful if you get something terrible. That means you're going to influence the rest of your, you won't. Maybe that's how it works. Oh dear, that's awful.
Oh, that's it. Think of all those family jokes.
Indeed. I'm glad they've taken out all these horrible things, that said you were going to have a bad year.
Yes. Well, they also had really horrid Christmas cards, didn't they? And
yes, very dark.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the Stir Up Sunday, so we're thinking it's more a bit of a nice story looking back on history rather than something that practically happened.
Well, the thing is, it does happen later, of course. Then it does become something. But this idea that it's got a sort of mythical past, which actually it didn't have, but eventually it does become something everybody does. And like I said, I do it now on Zoom with people in America. That was what I did last night. Yeah, it's fabulous.
Oh, fantastic. And then we talked about some of these accompaniments for Christmas pudding. So we mentioned, as you said, like the hard sauce, which is a brandy butter or a rum butter, I have now learnt.
Yes.
And we talked about the custard. You mentioned, would you do creme anglaise or would it be English custard?
I prefer English custard because it's thicker.
Thicker, yes. Good.
Because don't you think it just drops nicer down? But yeah, you might. I think a thin sauce wouldn't work really. I mean, no, yeah, I say that because I was just earlier. I said single cream could work. So yeah, I mean, worth a go. I prefer it though. I prefer custard, proper thick custard.
Yeah. I think it depends whether you're more going for a heavy Christmas pudding or whether you're going more for I suppose a plum puddingy, way rather.
But you kind of have to go with the heavy, don't you? I mean, it's heavy anyway, so it's
for a penny and for a pound. Yeah, you might as well.
So I've picked out 3 for you here because.
Go on then.
Well, one I'm not actually sure. This is from a 1960s book by someone wonderful called Elizabeth Craig, who I've not heard of. She's lovely. She wrote extensively from the 1920s about the 1990s. But she's got in one of her books, she's got eider down sauce, and I think it's a variant of the sauces we've talked about. But I love the name, eider down sauce.
Never heard of that. What's in it?
I think it's the same. When I was looking at the recipe, it basically looked the same. It's called eider down because of sort of, the coating, so it's a sort of thickish sauce. But I love I think they just popped a different name on it because it sounds lovely. Because when I looked at the ingredients, I thought, that's just a sort of hard sauce. But I've also got St. Clement's sauce. To this is butter, caster sugar, orange, corn flour, and lemon rinds. So that would be. The corn flour dates it a bit, so that's probably a bit 1840s, 1850s onwards.
But that makes sense if you're adding it with your candied peel in the pudding, so that kind of complements it, doesn't it?
And I've got one from the lovely Mrs. Beeton from 1861 as well, which is she calls it Beeton sauce. Eggs, rum or brandy. There we go. Sugar, water, boil, whisk, thick, and froth, and serve at once. That's a lovely, concise recipe there.
Oh, what's been in a bain marie, surely?
Yeah,
she doesn't say it, but
she doesn't say it. I do it on a very low heat. Yeah, because of the eggs. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to heat up the first things, put the egg in, and be very careful then with the last bit whisk, because often you can just throw eggs in, can't you, at the end if there's enough heat, and it will just thicken without any extra heat. So I might do it that way. But yeah, she wrote a lot of books for people who already knew how to cook, and they were some of the recipes are just shorthand almost. So you're right, you need to know like the knowledge we have to actually make that. But I think that sounds rather nice actually.
It does. And do you have a particular favourite Christmas pudding recipe? One that you comes back to?
Yeah, I mean, it's the one I've made for the last 5 years, really. So I do the Zoom classes, and I use Alight at Acton, so she's a bit earlier than Mrs. Beeton, 1840s, really. And people say it's one of the most delicious Christmas puddings. It's a sort of lighter pudding, really. It doesn't have everything thrown into it like a lot of the later puddings have. So she's a bit more restrained, but it has your usual things. So it's got raisins and currants. It's got mace, nutmeg, just mace and nutmeg rather than all the spices. It's got some brandy in there. It's got apple, about half an apple in there, breadcrumbs to it, all those sort of things. But yeah, it's really, really, really good. And if you've not tried it, I really advise everyone to try it, especially people who don't really like Christmas pudding, because you might actually like this one. And the thing is, and what I think really turns people off from puddings is they're so sweet. And I think that's where it all goes wrong, is you've got to have, and I mentioned it earlier, you've got to have sort of balance between sweet and sour. And, it shouldn't be too sweet because it just gets too sickly. I mean, it's heavy enough as it is. You throw in loads of sugar on it, it becomes almost impossible to eat. So I understand when people say they don't like Christmas pudding, but I do say try some older recipes because you might like something that doesn't taste like the commercial puddings taste now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that one. And I suppose that leads nicely on to, we talked about having a heavy pudding after a heavy lunch. And so there is often seconds or leftovers. Frying Christmas pudding was a thing back in my house. And also a friend was mentioning she used to have it with some cheese.
Yeah, it's good with cheese.
And they talk about too sweet. Then a nice bit of what kind of cheese?
Anything that's a bit I tried something. I'd probably go with a hard cheese because that kind of works, doesn't it? So I'd do a hard cheddar. I mean, a good one. There's also Dutch. I mean, if you can get your hands on Dutch cheese, they have a really old cheese, they call it, really dark. It's been extra matured. That would be really nice. It's almost on its way to Parmesan if you think about it. Old Dutch. They call it our kaas, our old cheese, and it's almost crumbly. It's so old it starts crumbling. But that would work really well. That would work really well with pudding.
Well, other ways of eating pudding, who knew?
But fried, definitely. And I talked about hacking pudding, didn't I? So, it's a similar thing. Yeah, pudding can definitely be fried. Yeah, really good. Like I said, with some, the greens. You've got all the greens left over, haven't you, usually?
Yeah.
So throw those on and get an egg going with that as well and have a lovely, really nice breakfast with a bit of Christmas pudding. And also, if you've got any beef left over, if you're eating beef, it's really good with beef as well. In a sandwich even.
We've talked a little bit about your course, and I'm sure that people would be absolutely delighted to know that they can still get in on the action. Paul does run a course called The History of Christmas, Customs, Feasting and Food from Medieval to Wartime. So in a nutshell, Paul, what could people expect?
So I do this together with this wonderful historian called Sarah Tobias. And we have like 15-minute slots that we bounce off each other. So she'll do 15 minutes of history and then I do 15 minutes of recipes. And then we'll bounce back, then I bounce back to her. And then, so it's like that. And it's quite heavy pace. And what I do is actually in each session, I do 6 recipes and I make them all and show them during the course. And what we do is record the sessions. So I've got, we've just done the medieval, let me think, medieval Renaissance or restoration, that sort of time, Elizabethan. We've done that one already, recorded. I've got, coming up is Regency in Georgian. And if you join, basically if you join along, you'll get recordings of most of it. And if you're lucky enough to sign up on time, you can come on and watch the live shows as well. But the recordings are brilliant. And what I do is send out all the recipes as well. So you can try all these really bizarre things. So things like, like the Fermenty, I could probably go and put the hacking pudding in as well. So all the recipes will be there just to follow along and to make yourself if you buy my course. It's great fun as well. And you'll learn a lot about history as well.
Well, I've already learnt a lot today. So
fabulous.
We'll do it. No, brilliant. Thank you, Paul.
My pleasure.
And as usual, the full transcript and useful links will be included in the show notes, episode 98. Other Christmas-themed episodes you might not have listened to include episode number 75, The Christmas Cracker, a Victorian Invention, episode 74, Christmas in 1950s and 1960s London, episode 35, A Tudor Christmas, and episode 34, London's Oldest Shops, Food and Drink. You can listen to those, you can join Paul online for a cooking session, or if you're in London, then come and join me on a Christmas walk. We have Christmas lights, we have a Victorian Christmas, and we also have a Christmas carol, even on Christmas Eve. That's all for now. See you next time.